And here we are again. All right. So I guess you all guys looked at the agenda, give it some serious thoughts and whatnot. So
Hey, look at that for timing.
hey, that's good, cool, awesome. Because yeah, so on the agenda right now, I have two things. Basically, discuss this Uberjar thing that Tim started, and the XML configuration, because I actually started on this task and I actually have some crazy idea I want to share with you. So shall we start with the Uberjar thing? Louis said he had
Yes,
opinions.
It's first in the agenda, so we should.
Right. It's because it's alphabetically first. Anything with an umlaut comes first. And everything that starts with XML comes last. It's just a thing in life.
Lots of pressure. We got to talk about Uberjar for a long time.
So the Uberjar thing, basically I don't have much more thoughts personally than the one that I put on the pull request, or I'm not sure whether it's an entire pull request. So on the work that, say hello, Doug. The work that Tim did, which is basically, I guess fundamentally is, in this Uberjar, do we want to have the 107 provider code in there? I would expect yes, but I don't think we want the Uberjar to have a runtime dependency on the 107 spec, i.e. the interfaces and whatnot. So I don't think that having the provider code and whatnot in there will not hurt anybody. But if you use Ehcache, period, then it just sits there as idle code that pollutes your jar. Nothing should even get loaded, right? If you use 107 and that's on your class path, then that provider gets loaded, and it's all there for you to use. The reason I don't think we want the spec in there is because I expect that at one point they'll make tweaks. So so at least we don't have to deal with these, i.e. a new version of the API. And I think if it becomes part of the of Java 8, I think we actually don't want it as a dependency provided there. If you want to talk, Chris, you're muted.
That's nothing to do with the Uberjar. That's more about the fact that the 107 module must have a provided dependency or whatever the equivalent is in.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry. So
yeah.
No, not no. What is it? Yeah, provided. Right.
You want provided. You want it to be available at compile time, but you do not want it to be listed as a required dependency when someone.
Sorry, that's what I was talking about. Yes.
Which, by the way, if we're anyway building from Gradle and pushing to Maven artifacts, provided makes no sense in that context. We should just have a POM file that does not declare a dependency to it. Period.
That's not true.
I have no idea what you just said, but I
think. Oh, hang on. Isn't there weirdness around?
Nope. Not that I know of.
What happens?
Well, if Chris was about to say around
Maven is capable of bootstrapping a build process from a POM, right? Or does that not work if it's a...
It won't work because you won't have sources to go with it. Because the project is a Gradle project. That's what I'm saying. You'll never build using Maven, period. And that's the only goal a provided dependency gives you.
Oh, yeah, that's
so then, provided breaks the transitivity, I believe, also.
So we're saying we can have a regular dependency in Gradle and just tell it not to put it in the POM.
Yeah, and I think that's what Tim also commented on his pull request. That's the POM it outputs. It outputs a POM that doesn't declare dependency on the 107 API.
Okay.
Like the GSR 107 API. But my question, and too bad Tim is not here, was, do we really need to create an Uberjar now? Can't we just use, if we have to do it from Maven, just depend on Impl and potentially 107 because they may be disjoint. But apart from that, you will pull all the dependencies you require and it's going to work.
My opinion. Sorry.
And yeah.
Well, that was my understanding too, but I don't see now that it's done. I don't see that it hurts anything either.
Here's the thing, right? No, we don't need to, but we don't need to ever create an Uber jar. At the end of the day, we could just say to everybody out there, no, use Maven. Depend on the bits you want and put transitory bits pulled in. There is no Uber jar. Don't have it. Sorry.
The day we make a release, I think it could make sense to have an Uber jar.
Right. But if it makes sense to have an Uber jar, then why can't we use this to alpha the Uber jar too? I don't see why we would delay doing it. It's not hard, so why delay doing it until later and finally team project? We may just do it now, and it doesn't stop people from doing it the other way with using Maven to do the transitive depths, but it means it's available.
Yeah, I
it
remember.
Means QA can start figuring out how they're going to test against it and all that kind of thing as well.
It's just that you've got another option, which is the in-between. You just create a Maven artifact, which is only a POM, and just declare the dependencies. And then you don't need the Uber jar.
Well, then
but that's not what we're planning on doing. This is my thing.
Yeah, then with Chris on that. I mean, if
the long-term plan is Uber jar, then we should just do Uber jar from the beginning.
Right.
But I'm totally happy to debate whether Uber jar is a good idea.
I think ideally we should have both.
Then we do both.
An Ehcache hole and an Uber jar. Because it serves different purposes. I believe a Maven user would not care about the Uber jar.
No, but wait a sec. Why would he have an issue? Or are you saying you wouldn't publish the Uber jar to Maven?
Potentially, yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea, but maybe I'm wrong. I like that it's being distributed only one way all over the place. But you can call me an idiot for saying that. But
the other thing I like about an Uber jar is
Uber jar could be what's attached to the release in GitHub, for example, and the rest is go fetch from Maven.
But what's the gain? You're distributing the same thing in two different matters.
You're not talking to the same public.
What?
You're not talking to the same public.
Yeah, but all right. So let's say I migrate from.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I can't check. Like all the tooling, like MD5 check summing the thing to see if it's the same jar and whatnot, which is things that I know I've used a lot when I was trying to figure out if I was really moving, like doing no ups, basically. Right? All of a sudden, none of that works. So it makes two things to maintain. There are two ways of getting to the same thing. I don't see any added value. I understand that it's different people, but what does a Maven user care that he gets an Uber jar or that he gets a bunch of transitive dependencies?
Yeah, maybe.
I think there is no difference for Maven. There is no difference for a Maven user except for one thing. We should also provide the source jar.
For the Uber jar?
Yes.
Yes. That's a good idea. We should do that.
Yeah, that's indeed a good idea.
A proper one.
What's a non-proper one?
All the sources. And the same thing for JavaDoc.
Well, the one that contains the source has a JavaDoc, and then we can distribute the lightweight JavaDoc one. Yeah, when you got the sources in the jar, well, at least a real IDE, if you
well, yes, no, your IDE is perfectly capable, yes, of generating one from the other, but I'm saying if we're gonna publish an Uber jar, we should publish an Uber jar in all respects. We publish the other jars. If we create JavaDoc jars, we should create JavaDoc jars that are Uber JavaDoc jars.
Yeah, totally.
Etc. etc.
And I also believe that in the Uber jar, only the code we write ourselves should be in there, not our dependencies.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes, obviously.
Unlike Ehcache 2, I mean.
What's in its Uber jar that we don't?
Jetty, Jersey.
Yeah.
Is there? How is it? Is that the repackaged stuff or?
Yeah, but did you ever wonder why the Ehcache 2 jar is something like 15 megs, I believe?
No, yeah, we don't. If we want that, that's not going to be the Ehcache open source thingy. It's going to be another distribution. We can make a.
I was speaking in the context of open source.
Yeah.
I think the UberJar is a good thing to do, but it should just be a compilation of our stuff.
Yes.
Right. Totally. Cool. All right. So what we're saying is that for this task, basically, I think though, if we want to, we need to make sure that for the release, for the alpha is what I'm talking about, we have then the source as well as the Java doc
Jars.
UberJar is creating as well. So I'm not sure whether that's being taken care of in all this Gradle food that appeared, but
okay.
Right. So I guess
no, it won't be there yet. So that needs to be added.
Is it that simple as what's already there, or are we talking a much harder task? I.e., basically, my question is: should we piggyback on the issue that's there, or should we create a new issue for doing those two?
It all depends on the plugin Tim used, which is this com GitHub John Rangelman shadow plugin. It all depends on what that enables, because that's what he's using to do the UberJar.
Okay.
The good news is Gradle is Groovy code, and we can always do the sources and Java manipulation by just writing Groovy code. But yeah.
So here's my opinion. Since I assume this is not blocking anyone, I see no reason to fragment this. So we should just push the pull request back and to make sure that it's got all the stuff right before we accept it.
Yeah. I don't think it blocks anyone except maybe Tim himself, which I'm not entirely sure. Because I think the reason he created that is so he could declare maybe an artifact against the TCK so that he could run it and test the stuff that he does. Though I think he could have just as well declared the internal 107 module as being that, and I think it would have worked.
Yeah, if he wants to do that himself, then he can always do that locally. There's nothing stopping him from using his own branch locally while he works on getting the Java source stuff, the Java doc and source stuff right.
True.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, so
that's
it. Yeah.
Another good news.
So that's one. Are we done? I'll take that as a yes.
Has anyone? The other thing to be careful in the UberJar is to make sure that all the services stuff doesn't get munched. That it knows how to correctly, that the shadow jar stuff knows how to correctly merge services, meta info, blah 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 thing is.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That list providers, it has to merge them properly. If it erases them, then you lose providers.
Yeah.
I know that the Maven stuff does it if you configure it right, but I don't. It's just something to look out for.
It's not an issue for now, though. It's not.
No, probably not. But it's not something I want to forget about and then get bitten by later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That should be commented to Tim as well, I believe. So at the very least, he should put a comment in the Gradle build file. Beware for the future.
I'll make a note to let him talk about
that. Yeah, good catch.
That's probably a comment worth adding to the issue itself.
Okay.
Which again shouldn't be an issue for the alpha. But as soon as we move to the beta, it's probably going to become an issue.
Yep.
Because there's going to be more providers and more certainly for the stores and a delegating provider or something. Need to figure.
It might be good as well to track some identifying information for what it was that was shaded into it, or Ubered into it.
In terms of what,
Git SHA-1s of Git.
SHA-1s? Okay,
SHA-1s of the SHA-1 of every repo that went to build it. At the moment, this UberJar is one. It's in one repo, but that may not be the case forever, particularly when we go to.
Well, I think this UberJar, yes, right.
Then we may do another UberJar.
Because I'm not sure whether I think he called it dist or something, right? It's this distribution, this open source distribution. I don't see why it would have
there's no reason why it wouldn't be. Although it's probably a good idea to make sure. I assume the Gradle does that, right? It sticks the SHA-1 somewhere in the produced artifact.
I remember tuning some stuff so that some information about the was recorded inside the manifest.
Yeah, because Maven does that.
Yeah, but that was in the ones that we're now merging as one, so I'm not sure what happens to them.
Okay.
Should probably look at what the manifest looks like, yeah. What was in there? I think I saved stuff like the build time, not sure I had the SHA-1 in there though. Anyways, I remember doing something around that, and then Louis probably cleaned it all up.
No, I don't think I did any cleanup, but we could add stuff. So for the moment, it has the provider which says Gradle, implementation title, version, build pipe, build JDK, build time.
Okay.
So we probably need to add a few other things in there.
That's kind of orthogonal to the UberJar stuff, but I'm just brainstorming, mind mapping, whatever you want to call it.
All right, cool.
I've put off the XML for a bit longer.
Right. Looks like we're diving into that then now, right? So there are two things that I wanted to discuss about the XML config in no particular order. I'm even wondering actually whether we should start with my crazy idea first, because I'm not sure whether it will set limitation on how we then parse this XML stuff or not. You're muted, Chris.
I would suggest you, whatever you're going to do, share an editor window.
Whatever I do, share a window?
An editor window, so that people can actually...
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with my idea then. And then we can see on how we parse all that. So screen one, share, present to everyone. All right. So that's do you guys can see my screen? You're muted, Chris. Don't mute such.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, I can read it.
Because you're eating, that's why.
I'm not actually eating yet.
But you were.
I think my wife is keeping my lunch for ransom downstairs or something.
All right. All right. So that's basically what we had so far, right? Nothing special. I cleaned it up a bit, this particular code path, so that I got rid of. You guys can see the top of the screen, right? Because I see a green bar. So you see the namespacing. Oh, the namespacing and whatnot. The root element, it's visible, right?
Yes. As long as you don't move the mouse up and make the menu bar appear.
All right, yeah, because it's not visible to me. I have this green bar above. Anyways, right. So that's what we wanted initially. I'm not sure whether we really want to change any of that right now. I'm not entirely sure about certain things here, like this. Apparently, it's fine to create a cache that has no capacity limit. I'm not sure whether that's really what we wanted, but could be. I'll look at how this maps into the real config anyway, so that's not so much the deal. So, but the way that we did this way back when is that all this becomes extensible in a way or another. And so you can create services here, as many as you want, right? Just do whatever you feel like. And the way you create services is by, well, you need to provide something in there. I think for now we have nothing really in there. So it's type. Right, so it's just something in another namespace. And this is so slow when I'm sharing, it's incredible. So on the Ehcache Jcache 2x project, somebody got confused about a couple of things. Probably the most important one being the default cache and what exactly its purpose serves. So just as a reminder, default cache is a, I'm not really sure how to call it, I'm gonna call it the template. It's probably not the best. Like, it's a default config that's gonna be used when you create a cache, only providing an alias for that cache. So a cache manager has, I think, two methods. One that says add cache that takes a string, another one that says add if absent or something that takes a string as well. And you can say foo, and then foo will use the configuration of the default cache to configure itself to some extent. I think it's really evil. It's actually the default cache is created, but then it's cloned. Well, let's not go into all those ugly details. So, but when you use 107, there are a bunch of things that you can't configure, right? And so the one that directly comes to mind is this capacity thing. When we said we wanted to do the XML config as part of this, we set ourselves as a goal to possibly try to probe people with the XML namespacing and see if we get hate mail because we're using that. So again, I think that if you only use actually no, even for open source stuff like the disk one, I think we said we would create an addition, like a separate module for it, so it would come with its own namespace and whatnot. So anyways, don't have to answer this now, but basically the two ideas gave me, well, this probing the XML namespace and this problem this guy hit. I tried to tackle this in the config, and so the proposal that I have right now is, so again, I made no changes on the XML stuff that's there. All I did is use the extension point that's there naturally to provide this kind of information, this additional information. So what I'm trying to do here is, I still have my cache bar, right? So I don't need to have a call like create cache name and passing in the cache configuration on the JSR 107 cache manager to create it. I can retrieve it right away, right? As soon as I said create me a cache manager pointing to wherever this XML file is, I'll have this bar's cache around. Now, if I would have if my application, let's say I'm migrating, right? So I'm currently using provider foo, and I'm moving to trying Ehcache out and see how this works out. So my proposal is to make it so that all the caches that are created programmatically using the 107 API can be enriched with Ehcache specific settings through a service, because that's one extension point that I have, right? So we don't. I think at some point Chris and I discussed about like having an XML namespace insertable here. When I type, but we backed off of that apparently because that's certainly not in XSD anymore, right? So, but we don't have that. So I use the service thing. So basically, I declare a service, right? That uses this JSR 107, so I create a random XSD right now, which is the Ehcache 107 extension, right? What I do is I can just specify the defaults that I want to see applied. So I would like to do some refactoring, by the way, so that all those things are actually not JSR 107, but actually use the namespace from here, because they're actually meant to be exactly the same thing. Maybe even what I would want to do is reuse the cache type. I'm not sure I can do that. My XML foo is not, my XSD foo is not awesome. So I'll have a look. But basically what I'm declaring here is a bunch of defaults that I want to see applied to, well, in this case I only do one. Right, so I could do this actually. Let me do this. Okay. So what I'm saying here is that any cache that gets created through the 107 API that matches this thing, its alias or its name, depending on what wording you want to use. This is why here I decided to not include neither nor. That matches this, i.e. foos, that's called foos. It's going to get a capacity limit of 200 entries added to its config. So now when you basically write JSR 107 code to say create this cache. Through the 107 API, you have no way to say how to set the capacity limit on it. But since you created Cache Manager by pointing to such a resource, you can, yes, you always do. You created the way you get to a Cache Manager, maybe I should put that up. So the way you get to a Cache Manager in 107 is you get the provider, and then you ask the provider to provide you with a Cache Manager. The way that you get to a Cache Manager is, if my memory serves, hopefully I'm not wrong, is always, let's try to figure this out live so that if I'm wrong, because I see Cache Manager. You can see this.
I'm sorry, but aren't we splitting hairs here?
I don't know.
Why would you have some configuration in a file which is partial so that you can do...
That's what I just said earlier. If you're transitioning one provider to another, you don't need...
Because you can't today create a cache in GSR 107 without passing a config.
No.
Also.
No, yeah. You need to pass in the config.
But you can do get cache. You don't create them. Yeah, so my question stands.
No, your question... No. Listen. If your cache, if your application, an existing app, right, creates caches programmatically, and you want to take each cache for a run, we can lower the bar of entry for you, which basically means the only thing you have to do is tweak this file. You don't have to do any Java source code changes. You don't need to recompile. You don't need to do
right. But if this is a useful feature, this ability that a default cache is interpreted not as a set of cache settings as it is either taken as a whole or not taken at all. If you reinterpret default cache as being, you can define default values for all
I'm
settings.
not reinterpreting default cache. Forget default cache. I mentioned that because of the confusion that came around with 2x. I'm not defining any default cache at all here.
Right, yeah, hang on, let me finish. If you could achieve what you want to achieve by just saying the ability to define defaults for settings for caches that match patterns or just all caches. You could just stick. Why stick it in the 107 extension? Why just stick it in as a feature of the main thing?
Well, that's a good question. So apparently,
and then the guy can do it without having to use a JS 107 space, and it's open to everyone as a useful feature, even if they're not using 107.
Right, we could. Now, again, as I said, one of the how the idea came around is to try XML namespaces on the people with the alpha.
Oh, totally. But I don't want to use a namespace. I mean, at that point, you may as well just bifurcate the thing at an arbitrary point and stick some of it in a different namespace to see how much that annoys people.
Yeah, but that
I want to have two namespaces, but I don't want to have two namespaces for artificial reasons.
Well, I don't think I wasn't thinking. You're saying this should be a core feature of Ehcache now.
I'm saying that if you think it's a useful feature, then I don't think.
No, I don't think it's a useful
feature.
Feature. I think it's a useful feature because of 107 being the way it is.
It just feels to me like the use case where this is useful is pretty. To me, the bar to want to put this in is like here, and the extra bar to say not just to make it a feature of Ehcache is like there. Like the difference is so slight. Just make it a feature of Ehcache if you think it's useful, because it'll help so many more people.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess my take is that.
And maybe I should backtrack.
This seems like a good idea that doesn't have a taker.
Other than this one guy.
I understand when you say that it can be useful for someone that's using GSR 107 only programmatically, but let's be honest, they'll be facing the same issues. It means they have no capacity control, no nothing.
No, that's not true. They're doing it whatever way that... No, that's not true. They're doing it whatever way their previous provider wanted it to do.
Okay, but then they do get cache, they don't do create cache. And the feature you're introducing just create cache.
No.
Then how are they doing it currently?
The way you can always do it is by using the implementation of your provider for the configuration.
Right. So they're doing unwrap stuff. In which case they're going to have to gut all that out anyway.
Come on, people, did you? Okay, maybe it's me that spent too much time in the spec and take it for granted that you guys. So let me take it from the beginning then. So what's the caching provider? No caching, whatever it's called. Let's start from the very beginning. Oh, it's not. Oh, come on. I type, seriously, stuff comes up on the screen like, I don't know, 3 seconds afterwards, right? It's that awesome. All right, caching provider. All right. So once you got your caching provider, see, that's the way you get through a cache manager.
Yep.
Sorry?
Yep.
So you get to a cache manager to like 3 ways, but they all delegate to each other, right? Mm-hmm. So get cache manager, get cache manager, get cache manager. That's the way you pass some stuff that you and only you care about, like you being provider foo. But basically the way that this works is always reads a config from some URI, because even this one is supposed to call this thing with this thing and this thing, right? So that's the way you get to a cache manager. So fundamentally, you always get to a cache manager from some URI.
Yep.
Put it that vague. Okay. So then, when you go to cache manager, so ends the flat config file that we need to have, and we said would keep XML. So then, how you create a cache? So obviously, all the caches that are already fully defined in this thing, you can simply call get.
Mm-hmm.
They already exist. That's cool. If you want to create one, you create one by passing in a config. I still have hard times figuring out what this C is all about, but one day my foo will be able to tell me. And that's basically what you have.
Right, and it's highly likely that configuration object is actually some. Well, for a lot of people.
I'm sorry, that's not what you have. What you have is this complete configuration. I'm an idiot, sorry. Yeah. That's what you have.
But it's highly likely that
I'm pretty sure you have something more specific.
Yeah, you have an implementation-specific subclass.
Oh, yes, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So if I use, say, coherence, right?
Right.
I pass to my cache manager, I pass create cache bar with this coherence-specific config.
Right.
This coherence-specific config implements this method.
Mm-hmm.
So for all this, we know what this means. Oh crap! Don't extend it. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
For all this, we know what it means. We know how to interpret it, right? So let's say that all caches out there have some capacity limit, capacity constraints that you can configure on them, right? So now, in order to make this create cache succeed for each cache, and when we say succeed, is not that it doesn't throw exception, it's that it's meaningful, right?
Yep.
I need to be able what? One is to understand every config provider that exists out there, right? Two, force. So if Oracle had like some specialized type, and I want to be able to.
The user has to understand the configuration of the implementation they're currently using, know how to map that into a configuration that our thing can understand. But you're saying it's infinitely preferable to do that in XML rather than modifying the code of their application.
Yes, that's the feature I'm proposing. So that you can do it through the flat file, and you
don't. But why force them? Why? I mean,
force them? No, I'm not forcing anything.
Right. No, but you're saying that you do this. I'm saying that the functionality you're giving people can just be done by allowing them to specify the same thing, but in a main namespace, and then it's useful for other things too.
Yeah. That's true. So if I the
one it's like you've got this. It's like you've got a car and so this car works really well, but you can only drive it on roads that are like on interstates. You can't drive on the minor roads. Why? I'm saying you're introducing an artificial limitation because you want to force 2 namespaces into the alpha.
No, that's not how it came about. It's honestly the one thing, and this is why that's what you see there is the capacity thing. That's, if you want to know what happened in my mind, that's exactly that. I want to solve the capacity thing. But I realize And I'm not sure whether I agree, so I would like to try it out. So say, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to figure out what other use cases practically there are for that, right?
I
So,
think so. I've looked at a million of these Ehcache XMLs where what they really want is a default cache that behaves like it says, where you basically, if you don't specify a setting, it pulls it from the default.
Right, so that you don't have to repeat yourself all over and over.
Yeah,
again, right?
like you've got Hibernate caching settings where you want the same TTIs on every cache, but you want different capacities. And at the moment, you have to specify the TTL every single time because you can't specify in the default cache and then specify different capacities in each of the individual caches.
Actually,
that's just really annoying.
And now I remember, Chris, I think you said something around, we discussed that in the past.
I'm sure we discussed it at some point. I can't for the life of me remember when, but when this guy sort of misunderstood the way it currently behaves in a way that is arguably better, I can remember thinking, yeah, we've talked about this, but I can't remember when.
But then there are still two options. There are still multiple options, right? So, and I'm not sure, maybe it makes sense, I don't know. So because the template thing, I think that makes total sense, right? The one thing that you start from, then you add the other things on top, and then you move on, right? That would be very, I think, Ehcache, right? Because so let's say we ignore the service here, right? It's sad that I can't collapse things. Anyways, let's say, and now I can do this thing. I can do a cache.
Okay, and then in that context, having the template as a first-class citizen in Ehcache 3, and then having a bridge to make
there's no need
GSR
for
107 use.
It would use it because it would get pulled through our influencer.
That's
whatever. I didn't say the bridge needs to be in XML. I just say having a bridge that allows you to use the template so you create a configuration, you give an alias, or when you call create cache with a configuration, that can even be the complete configuration from GSR 107, nothing else.
Yep.
Then we magically, whether it's in XML, whether it's in code, I don't care, but we magically bind, if you add a template, we bind the template to that limited config you give us.
Yeah, these are defaults for the cache manager. Right. Any cache created in that cache manager, doesn't matter how you create it, is going to use those defaults if it doesn't have any way to get those settings.
No, there are a couple of things though that we then.
That's a different question though.
Is it? I thought that's what I thought that's what we were all thinking of doing.
I guess then I had another idea.
In my head, I have this picture of a. I mean, I don't know if template's the right word, but it's the word Alex is using. I have this picture of a template where you sort of, the way that configuration is done is that you say, I want to create a cache, right? Let's start out with the template, which for this cache manager, and what settings do you have? You have that one, okay, so that overwrites this setting, and that one overwrites that, and then when you finish doing all the overwriting, that's the configuration you use.
Yes, and the important bit is let's start with a template. And I think in the Ehcache 3 world, it would mean you do something like cache manager .get cache template, and it returns you a pre-populated cache configuration builder that you can then extend upon.
Yes, you're right. We might need to extend this into the programmatic config side of the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the programmatic side. Then when you look at the programmatic side that way, it means that to use a template, you have to explicitly say, I want to use the template. And what I'm saying as the bridge for GSR 107 is that the usage of the template becomes implicit if you only give us something that we can recognize as a complete configuration and nothing else more specific. Because otherwise, you end up having the same issue in Ehcache 3. What happens? I create a complete configuration object, and I leave a few bits, the optional bits out, and when I create a cache from it, because a template had some of these values filled in, suddenly they get merged underneath me. I wouldn't like that feature. If it's implicit in Ehcache 3,
but it's not. Right.
I mean, if it's implicit in Ehcache 3, that's where I was making the difference in between the two.
Okay.
Okay, so I sort of listened. I tried to make changes in parallel at the same time because I still have a couple of issues. So if we call this a cache template, you have one and only one.
Maybe why we could name them.
You could.
We could name the templates, not have a pattern, but name them.
And so
maybe.
So this would be like extends.
Yeah, potentially.
See, right? And then that solves my problem too, because all I need to do is not do that.
Yeah.
So that solves that problem. That's cool, and that overrides. That's cool. So yeah. So if we do it that way, that works. So you explicitly say. So now then so there is still room for this thing then, because I need to map. I need to be able to map what? How do I map a cache that's created through the 107 API to a given template?
The issue you were discussing was when the user doesn't want to do any change to his code.
Yes.
And so what it's giving us is either the limited complete configuration from GSR 107, or is even passing us some other provider specific class that we can't do anything about because we don't know it. And that's where I'm saying there we could have a bridge, which is in the context of GSR 107 only, when you give us something that we do not recognize as an Ehcache 3 GSR 107 compliant configuration, we're going to merge the one you gave us with the template.
What template? Which one?
Probably there we may need to have a default template.
Why? Why can I not use one or the other?
Oh, and then the bridge in XML would be about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Here, cache, so matches foo, and then uses. See, I'm writing kind of DSL.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There. Yeah.
There you go. And you could say, you could even then do this default. Oh crap. Template equals T.
Yes, but that means that in that block you don't have anything like capacity or stuff like that.
No.
It's purely about template matching. Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. Is it useful? I'm still not convinced, but it makes sense at least now.
Well, we're going to make the same argument I made earlier. Why does that go? Maybe I missed something because I was a bit distracted trying to figure out where I remember this idea from. Why is that in the 107 namespace?
Because when somebody creates a cache, so we said that we want to be, so I'm not sure where you left, but so you can specify multiple templates, right?
Right.
In Ehcache. So never mind the thing above. When you create a cache, you can tell it to use a given template.
Why don't you do that by actually nesting the cache inside the template, and then you don't have a cache template, you have a cache group?
That's irrelevant if you want, but so I'm trying to answer your former question first.
Cool.
So that's the way this works, right? So you create a cache and you tell it what it needs to use. Cool, be my guest. So now that's good. But now in 107, when somebody creates programmatically a cache, like we say, all right, cool, it can use the template. Well, the question that remains open is what template?
Which template? Okay, yeah.
And so this is why I want to make this here. So you put the 107 thing here. You say by default you use C, but
why a 107 thing?
B.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you make that work for a regularly created programmatic cache?
Because when you create a programmatic cache, you pass it a cache configuration.
Yeah, you use the template.
But if I'm allowed to use this cache template stuff to extract out commonality in my XML configurations, why can't I use it to extract out commonality in my programmatic configurations in the form of PCR?
But you can. The thing is, you first do cache manager.get template configuration, and then you work on that configuration. Why would you have each cache merge it for you?
Yeah, this magic is only required because we don't do anything at the 107 layer. Here I would have cache.
I'm just kind of the opinion if you're writing the magic and it's useful outside of 107.
Oh, it's
no. I don't think.
Even more so with what you said, right? If you want to move to something like a world like this because you didn't like the extend, and I'm fine with that. Right?
Oh no,
So let's say you do it this way and then you pass it in here, right? Whichever way it works, right? It can be caches or I don't know.
Yeah.
You have all your defaults here and then all the ones that use them. If we think that's clear, we can discuss this afterwards because I will need to know which flavor to implement. But It's irrelevant. But then, actually, no. If you make it so, I would even say like so, right? Create cache, and you could say foo. No, that's horrible because I like the type system to be used. So I think I would do something like Louis said, right? Basically, you create the cache, and here you provide a template. You provide a config, right? And this can be null.
No. I think the way I would do it, is
template.merge config.
Not even. I would have cache manager.getTemplate, which returns me a config builder, and then I work on that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what this is about. This basically, This returns this. Obviously, is not a static method, but you basically have a template. Right?
No,
from where you can get something. Yeah, if you don't like merge, it's fine. It's a different problem.
No, but it's that I'm not passing the config.
Oh, you always pass the config when you create a cache.
He's not passing anything special there. He's saying that the template is the thing you get from the cache manager. It happens that he made his template have a merge method. You could have, if it's a builder, then you just have to have a longer chain of calls there.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
well, whichever way we do it. So yeah, basically what Chris.
That's fine. I was just trying to be belligerent to try and drag this out and see if we can.
Foo, passing in something, and that returns. Eventually, you get to.
Eventually, you have to some chain of calls. If it's a big long build chain, whatever, then you get to a cache.
I need to give that more thought. But yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so in which case the 107 binding makes sense. It's fine.
Okay, so that's how we do it. But then, what about this though?
The grouping.
Honestly, I must say I'm not sure I like this.
You hate it. Why do you hate it?
Because I think as the view, the way it reads, maps better.
Okay.
It's pattern matching, visual pattern matching.
That's what I'm trying to ponder. I made this by mistake, but actually I think that's what I would want to be able to do.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that potentially.
Even interleaving, so that people can, if they want, they can have all the templates together and then all the caches afterwards. We'll declare a template here and then put all the caches that basically uses it, right?
And is there a default template or not?
No.
Okay.
No. Why? Well, why would there be?
No, if it's not explicitly used.
The other thing you may have not seen is the one that I had here, right? So see, this uses the writer, right? If I want to be able to remove something, it's going to make it like really awkward, like to keep the thing was set, like is unset and whatnot at the configuration layer.
Okay.
So I think it's nice to be able to say, like, because now, so if you have a default, that's implicit, because I guess that's what
there
you
is
mean,
a default.
right?
No, it's true. There is a default. The default is an empty template.
Oh, if you want, yeah. Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's more
But
than empty template. Some of those settings might have defaults alone.
Oh yeah, that we could do.
They all do explicit defaults, but it doesn't have to be accomplished through the same mechanism. But anyway, okay.
Okay, so yeah, we can use that to that actually. Right now, the default's not specified in the builder, I guess, right? And we make everything. Maybe actually moving to the template for this may be nice. So, okay, so we're saying we want to have this. So that's what I'm proposing. No ordering. You can have cache and templates interleaved as ever you.
Okay. Fit. And you're going to put the necessary XSD magic in place to constrain that users must reference a template name and template names must be unique.
There is one thing I don't know about that. Would that? Well, actually, I don't care about the answer. I was about to say, could I do this? I know I've done that in the past, but can I do this?
Can you do what? I'm sorry, I didn't see how you changed.
Oh, sorry. So bars uses v, which is declared.
Yeah, you can do that. That's
Why
fine.
would we limit that?
No. He's saying, can you do that in XML? The answer is yes.
So I can forward references.
I believe you can forward ref because it's going to do 2 passes.
Yeah.
I think I might slow XML parsers down, but it's legal, I believe. You'll find out anyway soon enough.
Okay, cool. So All right. So
if not, you can certainly obviously write that piece of XML. If we find that XSD won't let you enforce a uniqueness and referential constraint there, then you can always just choose not to have the XSD enforce it and do it somehow. But I'm pretty sure you can do that.
No, I don't even think it's an issue. I was about to say, if you want this, the reason for the interleaving, right? And by the way, I think this is going to be obviously having this would be the most simplistic thing to do in XSD, right? Force all the cache templates to appear before the thing.
Before the caches they use, but
I can see somebody saying I use T here. Honestly, I think it may be cool that he can organize his XML like so. It's much easier. And then if the forwards referencing is not even allowed, maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you want to be able to say, all right, crap, no, this should be V, let's try it out quickly.
Yes, and there are other reasons you might want to logically group caches in the file besides the fact that they happen to have configs in common.
That's true too, yeah.
Cherche un nez.
Je ne sais pas, Anthony, mais dis-nous. So, all right, cool. So that's about that. How do we parse all this in the last 7 minutes that we have?
With an XML parser, I don't know.
The magic?
Yeah, sold.
So the thing with the XML parsing, right, is that we don't have a huge amount of XML to parse ourselves. So it's very tempting to do it with like brute forcing through SACS or whatever your bare bones XML parser is. But the thing is, we're going to end up potentially writing a lot of services or stuff like that all want to do the same thing. So I think we need to pick something that's more user friendly than that now. But I don't have a strong enough opinion on XML beyond liking the color pink.
Yeah.
To,
and then another question I realize is, do we want to organize all this XML parsing in its own module? I think yes.
I think it would be useful to have a set of tools that service writers can use to do the XML parsing, even though that'll be us most of the time. So it would be nice if there was stuff to help people do it.
Well, I'm confused. I'm not sure whether you're answering my question now.
Probably not.
No, probably. Well, otherwise I have no clue. So
What
the question I was asking was more in terms of code layouting. Should we create the XML stuff in its own dedicated module?
Yes.
How do we glue all this together? Do we make this?
I think it would.
core?
So yes.
I would be tempted to say no. Do we make it part of Impl? It could, but it could go in its very own thing. And so we avoid, and then it depends how we don't want the stuff to leak. I think we want the XML to depend on core, so that the XML knows how to create a config. And then that's it. But never core can use any XML-driven things, and so we can never do the mistakes we've done in the past.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Cool. So,
yes.
Do we think JAX-B is what we want? Because I think Anthony proposed that. I think, by the way, for the parsing, what I would use is whatever, like anything that comes with the JDK. If it doesn't come with the JDK, I would say no. And if it comes with the JDK, we need to make sure that it's compatible across.
I think we could just use the same approach we used, and we weren't really sure what the state of the art, what the best choice was with service stuff, the CI stuff, service stuff.
Try one and see where it is.
Try JAX-B. If JAX-B falls over and fails, we'll figure out what the next thing is. But JAX-B seems like a good place to start.
Okay.
My suspicion is that, honestly, my suspicion is that any of these things would be good. They're good enough. But then we had that suspicion with the CI services, and they weren't. So who knows?
I'm not really fond of using JAX-B, but I wanted to give it a chance.
What's your alternative?
Why? And what is it that you don't like? Fax parsing.
Well, you'll probably have to create some objects that map the XML, and then you will have to bind the real config objects of Ehcache using those objects you created out of the XML.
Well, I don't mind that as long as they're not the same objects, as long as there's a decouple between the objects that JAX-B deals with.
They will be decoupled if we use different modules.
One thing that I hated about JAX-B, I think I remember, is basically reading defaults off of XSD. It's like tedious. It's not as nice as it should be. I seem to remember.
It feels like a conversation we can and should have offline.
Yes.
It
Well, you know what? I'm gonna try to spec the XSD around what I have there, right? As soon as I have that, I'll push that out, and I'll see. Right, it will be the time where you guys can start arguing about that. What I'll do in parallel, so that could maybe happen by the end of the day. Oh no, probably not. I'm running off early again today, right? So, maybe tonight. I don't know. We'll see. They will happen probably before the end of the week, and then I'll move into the parsing problem, right? Then we can argue about. You know, what I seem to remember was nice, though, is that it could auto-generate from an XSD, right? And there's a bunch of things I don't even need to care about.
Yes, we do. That's
much like XML beans.
XML beans can definitely do that. That's what we use in Terracotta to do the.
No, but Jack's can too. But this is why I think I remember something around like defaults XSD, or I don't remember.
Maybe you're remembering Jack's B1, but that one was horrible.
It could be. It could be that my memory stems from a long time ago.
Right. It's time
Last
for
time
me
I
to
did with Chris, and we were brute forcing everything.
Yes, SATs and XPath expressions. It's brilliant.
So okay, cool. So I'll work on that. And now, and by the way, now remember this whole discussion with templates, Chris, and multiple ones and whatnot. I'm not.
I
sure
don't remember. Maybe we had
it
it when we were doing TCX or something.
Yeah, it could be. I remember at some point, like you said, no, you were part of it. I said, no, it probably wasn't me, but I was wrong. Now that I see this, I remember that, the template thing. And I think that's how we called it back then.
I don't like the word template, by the way. A template implies a thing with placeholders that you populate. This isn't a template. I don't know what it is. A template makes me think of a piece of HTML with a bunch of curly bracket shit in that gets populated by a script. Whereas, do you know what I mean? A template is something that is like a form letter that you fill the data in. This isn't quite that. I don't know what you call it though. Maybe it is a template. I don't know.
Since you're the pedant here and the only native English speaker, why don't you find a better word?
No.
Because the past is something and he doesn't care.
Template's fine for the moment. I think it's one of those things where we'll find out soon enough if it's confusing as a term. If it's not confusing, it doesn't really matter if it's wrong.
That's actually
the vast majority of users will be non-native speakers. Well, maybe not the vast majority. Well, the vast majority will probably be American, but.
If everybody that sees that knows what we're talking about, then
it doesn't matter what it is.
If they need to search, like, what the heck is that, then it's not the good word. So even if there is a better word that nobody understands, it's not the best word.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'll do that somehow then. Cool. I'll do that. Expect something probably midday tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I'll move on to the parsing stuff. Fun. All right, cool. Thanks a lot.
See ya.